Have you ever noticed something strange? The people who lose the most respect are not always the weak ones. They are often the people who love the hardest, give the most, forgive the most, and stay the longest. They keep sacrificing their peace, believing loyalty will be rewarded, but the world does not always reward sacrifice. Sometimes it rewards boundaries. Sometimes the moment you stop chasing is the moment people finally see your value, and sometimes the greatest mistake is not losing someone, it is losing yourself while trying to keep them. Today, you will learn a truth that most people discover too late. The person who keeps accepting less than they deserve slowly teaches others to offer less, and the moment you understand this, your entire life changes. You know that feeling your phone is in your hand. You are staring at a message, you read it again and again, you wonder what they really meant, you wonder why they sounded cold, you wonder why they take hours to reply when they used to answer in minutes. Then you start creating explanations. Maybe they are busy, maybe they are stressed, maybe they did not mean it that way, maybe tomorrow will be different. But deep inside another voice speaks, a quieter voice, a more honest voice, the voice that says, this is not the first time, this is not the first time you felt ignored, this is not the first time you felt confused, this is not the first time you tried to explain your pain to someone who keeps creating it. Most people ignore that voice because accepting the truth would force them to make a difficult decision. It would force them to admit that they are holding on to something that is no longer holding on to them, and that realization hurts, not because you stop loving them, but because you finally see that you have been carrying a weight that was supposed to be shared. The first lesson Machiavelli would teach is simple. Never confuse attachment with value. Many people stay because they believe their willingness to suffer proves the depth of their love, but suffering does not create value. Sacrifice does not guarantee appreciation. In fact, the more available you become without limits, the more invisible your efforts can become. Look carefully at your situation. Who starts the conversations? Who keeps fixing the misunderstandings? Who keeps apologizing first? Who keeps reaching out after every argument? Who keeps carrying the emotional weight? If the answer is always you, then you are not maintaining a connection, you are maintaining an illusion, and illusions are dangerous because they survive on hope. They convince you that tomorrow will be different. They convince you that one day they will understand. They convince you that one day they will finally appreciate everything you have done. But hope without evidence is not wisdom, it is self-deception. The human mind loves potential. It loves imagining what something could become. That is why so many people stay trapped. They do not love the relationship they have, they love the relationship they imagine. They remember the beautiful beginning, the late-night conversations, the attention, the affection, the excitement. They keep replaying those memories while ignoring the reality standing in front of them. But memories cannot protect your peace. Potential cannot comfort you at night, and promises cannot replace consistent actions. The truth is simple. A person's pattern reveals their priorities, not their words, not their intentions, not their excuses. Their pattern. Anyone can promise change, anyone can explain their behavior, anyone can say they care, but real care shows itself through consistent action, and when action disappears while excuses remain, the pattern becomes clear. Many people waste years waiting for a future version of someone, a version that may never arrive. Meanwhile, they slowly abandon themselves. They stop expressing their needs, they stop protecting their standards, they stop trusting their instincts, and eventually they become strangers to their own dignity. This is how emotional captivity begins, not with chains, not with threats, not with force, but with hope. Hope that the next conversation will fix everything. Hope that the next apology will finally be sincere. Hope that the next chance will somehow create a different result. Yet every repeated disappointment leaves another scar. Every broken promise weakens trust. Every ignored feeling teaches your mind that your pain matters less than keeping the connection alive. That is why their Strongest people eventually reach a turning point, a moment when reality becomes impossible to ignore. A moment when they stop asking, "How can I make this work?" and start asking, "Why am I the only one trying?" That question changes everything, because once you ask it honestly, the illusion begins to collapse. You begin noticing things you ignored before. You notice how often your needs are dismissed. You notice how often your effort goes unnoticed. You notice how frequently your kindness is expected, but rarely appreciated, and for the first time you stop focusing on their potential, you focus on their behavior. This shift is powerful because behavior tells the truth. Behavior reveals commitment. Behavior exposes priorities. Behavior never lies for long, and when you finally see the truth, you face a difficult choice. You can continue investing in the illusion, or you can protect your peace. Most people choose the illusion because peace feels unfamiliar. Pain becomes comfortable when it lasts long enough. Chaos becomes normal when you experience it every day. Waiting becomes a habit. Disappointment becomes expected. And slowly suffering starts feeling like love, but it is not love. Love does not constantly leave you questioning your worth. Love does not repeatedly make you feel invisible. Love does not require you to shrink yourself just to stay connected. Real love expands your life. It does not reduce it. Real love creates security. It does not create constant anxiety. Real love respects your dignity. It does not ask you to negotiate it. Machiavelli understood something most people refuse to accept. People value what they fear losing, not because they are cruel, but because human nature often overlooks what appears permanent. The longer you stay regardless of treatment, the more your presence starts feeling guaranteed. The more guaranteed you become, the less attention people pay to your value. This does not happen overnight. It happens slowly. One ignored message, one broken promise, one act of disrespect, one excuse, then another, until the pattern becomes normal. And the dangerous part is that you start participating in the pattern too. You say you deserve better, yet you remain. You say you need respect, yet you accept confusion. You say you know your worth, yet you keep negotiating with someone who treats your presence as optional. This contradiction creates suffering because every time your actions disagree with your standards, your self-respect weakens. You begin doubting yourself. You begin questioning your instincts. You begin abandoning your own truth. That is why boundaries are not punishments, they are protection. A boundary is simply a decision that your peace matters, a decision that your dignity matters, a decision that access to your life is earned through respect. Many people fear boundaries because they think boundaries push people away, but boundaries do something more important. They reveal who is willing to stay. Anyone can remain close when access is unlimited. Anyone can remain close when forgiveness has no conditions. Anyone can remain close when there are no consequences. Character reveals itself when boundaries appear. Character reveals itself when respect becomes required. Character reveals itself when effort is expected from both sides. This is where most people discover the painful truth. Some individuals loved the benefits of your presence more than they loved you. They loved your attention, they loved your patience, they loved your forgiveness, they loved your emotional support, but they never learned to protect the source of those gifts. And when you finally stop overextending yourself, they become uncomfortable, not because you changed, but because the dynamic changed. The free access disappeared, the endless patience ended, the one-sided effort stopped, and suddenly they feel the absence of what they once ignored. This is not revenge, this is reality. Every action creates consequences, every choice creates results. And every neglected relationship eventually reflects the effort invested into it. The strongest move is not convincing someone to value you. The strongest move is valuing yourself enough to stop convincing them, because the moment you stop chasing validation from people who take you for granted, something remarkable happens. Your energy returns, your confidence returns, your clarity returns, and For the first time in a long time, you begin remembering who you were before you started begging for what should have been given freely. This is where true power begins, not in controlling others, not in making them regret their choices, but in refusing to abandon yourself any longer. The greatest trap is not losing someone, the greatest trap is slowly losing yourself while calling it love. Most people never notice when this happens. It does not arrive with a warning, it arrives quietly, one compromise at a time, one excuse at a time, one swallowed truth at a time. At first you tell yourself you are being patient, you tell yourself you are being understanding, you tell yourself that every relationship requires sacrifice, but then something changes. You stop speaking honestly because you fear their reaction. You stop expressing your needs because you do not want to seem difficult. You stop asking difficult questions because you are afraid of the answers, and without realizing it, your entire life starts revolving around one goal, keeping them close. This is the moment when love becomes dangerous, because real love should bring you closer to yourself. Attachment pulls you away from yourself. Look carefully at what this connection has done to you. Has it made you stronger? Has it made you calmer? Has it made you more confident? Or has it made you anxious, uncertain, and dependent on someone else's attention? That answer matters, because many people mistake relief for love. They feel ignored for days, then receive one warm message and suddenly feel alive again. They call this love. It is not love, it is emotional dependency. A starving person feels grateful for crumbs. That does not mean crumbs are a feast, and that is why powerful people ask a different question. They do not ask, do they love me? They ask, who am I becoming in order to keep them? If you are becoming smaller, quieter, weaker, and more afraid of being yourself, then the price is too high. No person is worth abandoning your own soul. No relationship is worth sacrificing your peace. No attachment is worth losing your dignity. This is where the quiet decision begins, not the dramatic decision, not the angry decision, the quiet one. The strongest exits are rarely loud. They happen in silence. No long speeches, no emotional performances, no desperate attempts to make someone understand. Just clarity, just truth, just the realization that you can no longer stay where your self-respect continues to shrink. Many people believe they must hate someone before leaving. That is a mistake. You do not need hatred, you only need honesty. You can love someone and still walk away. You can care about someone and still recognize they are not good for your peace. You can appreciate the good memories and still refuse to continue living inside a painful pattern. That is maturity, that is strength, that is self-command. Weak people stay because they fear being alone. Strong people leave when staying becomes more painful than solitude, and when you finally leave, something fascinating happens. The space you once filled becomes visible, the energy you once gave becomes noticeable, the patience you once offered becomes missed. Not because you suddenly became valuable, you were always valuable. The difference is that your value was hidden behind unlimited access. Human nature rarely appreciates what appears permanent. People often notice water only when the glass is empty. They notice warmth only when the room becomes cold. They notice loyalty only when it stops waiting. This is why your absence reveals more than your presence ever could. But here is where many people destroy their freedom. They leave physically but remain emotionally. They stop sending messages but continue checking profiles. They stop talking but continue watching. They stop reaching out but secretly hope to be noticed. That is not freedom, that is attachment wearing a different mask. If your happiness still depends on their reaction, they still control your peace. If your self-worth still depends on whether they miss you, they still control your value. If your healing is designed to make them regret losing you, they still occupy the center of your life. True freedom begins when you stop monitoring the lesson. Leave, then live, leave, then grow, leave, then return your attention to your own life, because your mission is not to make them understand your worth. Your mission is to remember it yourself now. comes the most dangerous moment, the moment they react, the moment they feel your absence, the moment they suddenly return a message, arrives a call, appears an apology, appears, they say they miss you, they say they have changed, they say they finally understand, and suddenly your heart begins fighting with your memory. This is the test, because a reaction is not transformation. Anyone can become emotional when they feel loss, anyone can become attentive when access disappears, anyone can promise change when consequences arrive, but real change is not measured in days, it is measured in patterns. The same way their old behavior revealed the truth, their new behavior must reveal the truth too. Time is the judge, not emotion, not promises, not words. Time. Watch carefully. Do they take responsibility? Or do they blame circumstances? Do they respect your boundaries, or do they pressure you to remove them? Do they acknowledge your pain, or do they focus only on their discomfort? These questions reveal character, because character does not appear during comfort, character appears during accountability. Many people lose months or years because they mistake panic for growth. Someone fears losing them. Someone sends emotional messages, someone suddenly becomes attentive, and the cycle starts again. For a few days everything feels different, for a few weeks everything feels hopeful, then the old pattern returns. Why? Because behavior changed, character did not. The fear of losing you created temporary effort, but temporary effort is not permanent growth. That is why wise people never give old access to unproven change. Trust is rebuilt through consistency, not promises, not emotions, not speeches. Consistency. The person who truly values you will understand this. They will not rush your healing. They will not demand instant forgiveness. They will not act offended because you finally chose yourself. Real change respects boundaries. Real change accepts accountability. Real change survives time. Then comes the final challenge, the pain, because leaving does not instantly remove attachment. Even when the decision is correct, pain remains. You will miss them. You will remember good moments. You will question yourself. You will wonder whether you made the wrong choice. This is normal. Do not confuse pain with proof. Pain is not evidence that you should return. Pain is evidence that you cared. Your heart became attached, your mind built habits, your life adjusted to their presence. Breaking those patterns hurts, but pain is often the cost of freedom. A prisoner feels discomfort when the cell door opens after years of confinement. Familiar suffering can feel safer than unfamiliar freedom. That does not mean the prison was home, and this is where nostalgia becomes dangerous. Nostalgia edits reality. It shows you beautiful memories, it hides painful patterns, it reminds you of warm moments, it forgets lonely nights, it remembers promises, it forgets disappointments, it remembers the beginning, it hides the ending. That is why you must trust reality more than memory. Memory is emotional, reality is factual. Reality shows patterns, reality shows behavior, reality shows truth, and truth is what sets you free. The final lesson is simple. Your victory is not their regret, your victory is your recovery. Your victory is waking up without anxiety. Your victory is sleeping without confusion. Your victory is speaking honestly without fear. Your victory is becoming yourself again. Maybe they will regret losing you, maybe they will not, maybe they will finally understand, maybe they never will, but none of those outcomes should decide your future. Because the moment your peace depends on their realization, you hand them power they no longer deserve. Machiavelli understood a truth most people spend years learning: power belongs to the person who can walk away from what no longer serves them, not with hatred, not with revenge, not with bitterness, with clarity, with discipline, with self-respect. So if you are standing at that crossroads today, remember this: you are not weak for caring, you are not foolish for loving, you are not broken because you stayed too long, but now you know the truth, and once truth arrives, responsibility follows. Stop negotiating with behavior that continues to hurt you. Stop begging for what should be given freely. Stop shrinking to fit inside someone else's comfort. Choose yourself, protect your peace, guard your dignity, and if you must walk away cleanly, because the real victory is never making them feel the loss. The real victory is making sure you never lose yourself again. The greatest mistake after walking away is believing that the battle is over. It is not. The real battle begins inside your mind. The mind remembers comfort before it remembers consequences. It remembers the smile before the betrayal. It remembers the affection before the neglect, and when loneliness arrives, it becomes a skilled storyteller. It starts rewriting history. It removes the painful parts. It softens the truth. It convinces you that maybe things were not as bad as they really were. This is where most people lose, not because the other person returned, but because they forgot why they left. Machiavelli understood something most people never learn. A person who cannot govern his own emotions will eventually become a servant to someone else's actions. The moment your feelings become your master, your peace belongs to whoever can influence those feelings. That is why discipline matters, not because feelings are wrong, but because feelings change. Today you miss them, tomorrow you may not. Today you feel lonely, tomorrow you may feel strong. Today your heart wants to go back, tomorrow your mind may thank you for staying away. A wise person never builds his future on a temporary emotion, he builds it on principles. You can miss someone and still refuse to return. You can love someone and still recognize that they are dangerous for your peace. You can feel pain and still choose the action that protects your future. That is power, not the power to control others, the power to control yourself. Every time the urge to contact them appears, pause. Do not obey immediately. Let the emotion pass through you. Walk right, think, reflect. Remember the entire story, not only the chapter your loneliness wants to replay. Ask yourself one brutal question: do I miss who they were, or do I miss who I hoped they would become? Most people are not attached to reality, they are attached to potential. They are attached to the future they imagined, the apology that never came, the effort that never arrived, the version of that person that existed only in their hopes, and hope can become a prison when it refuses to accept reality. Remember this: walking away is not a single decision, it is a decision repeated many times. You repeat it when you feel weak, you repeat it when a memory appears, you repeat it when a song reminds you of them, you repeat it when loneliness whispers that returning would be easier. And every time you choose truth over craving, you become stronger. Every time you choose self-respect over attachment, you become freer. Every time you refuse to betray yourself again, your confidence grows. Do not be ashamed of the pain. Pain is natural, pain is human. Pain does not mean you made the wrong decision. Pain simply means you are healing from something that once controlled you. The strongest people are not those who feel nothing. The strongest people are those who feel everything and still make the correct decision. Now comes the most important lesson: rebuild your life. Not for them, not to impress them, not to make them regret losing you, for yourself. Many people leave a relationship but remain emotionally trapped because everything they do is still directed toward the person who hurt them. They go to the gym hoping to be noticed, they become successful hoping to be admired, they become silent hoping to be missed. This is not freedom, this is attachment wearing a new mask. Freedom begins when they are no longer the audience. Freedom begins when your progress belongs to you. Build your body because your health matters. Build your career because your purpose matters. Build your discipline because your future matters. Build your character because your peace matters. Not because someone else is watching, because you are. The world changes when you stop seeking external validation. The day you no longer need their approval is the day you become dangerous. Dangerous in the best possible way, because now nobody can manipulate your worth, nobody can control your confidence, nobody can hold your happiness hostage. Your value becomes internal, and internal value is impossible to steal. One day they may notice, one day they may see the difference, they may realize your absence, they may recognize the loyalty they lost, they may understand the peace you once brought into their life, but by then it should not matter, because your goal was never to become Unforgettable to them, your goal was to become undeniable to yourself. That is the final victory, not their regret, your recovery, not their realization, your transformation, not their return, your rebirth. The Stoics taught that peace comes from mastering yourself, not controlling others you cannot control. Who appreciates you, you cannot control. Who understands your value, you cannot control. Who regrets losing you, but you can control whether their choices continue to determine your future, so let them keep their memories, let them keep their excuses, let them keep their version of the story. You move forward, you return to your standards, you return to your discipline, you return to your purpose, you return to the person you were becoming before attachment distracted you. And if one day they finally understand what they lost, let that realization belong to them. Your journey is no longer about being chosen, it is about choosing yourself, because the strongest person in the room is not the one who made someone regret losing them, it is the one who became so complete that another person's regret no longer has the power to disturb their peace, and that is the quiet power most people spend their entire lives searching for.